Understand the southern accent all right. I worry about that. I think Lisa told me that her father was Australian. But I'll tell you a little story. I was in Los Angeles and I walked up to a street vendor and bought some food. And he said to me, you have an accent. Where are you from? I said, I'm from New Zealand. He said, well, where's that? And I said, well, it's down in the South Pacific near Australia. He said, where Arnold Schwarzenegger comes from. And if you're not sure where Australia is, it's a small island off New Zealand's west coast. So you know. Anybody heard of Ron DeSantis? Yes. Governor Ron DeSantis from Florida? Well, I might do a little bit of bragging on him later, but before I do, I just got to reveal my relationship. You know, in the interest of transparency, I've got to put my relationship out there because we're pretty close. Because you see, Ron DeSantis' family comes from Philadelphia, and my wife's family also comes from Philly. And 40 years ago, my wife's aunt dated Ron DeSantis' father's cousin. So we're practically family. So now you know it's out there. Now what I'm going to talk about today is really the urgency of the situation in front of us, China's influence in your state, and some of the things we need to do about it. Now, you've heard of, remember when Virginia was a really, really red state? And it went slowly blue. It went really blue. And in the last election, thanks to Moms for Liberty and Glenn Youngkin, they took it back. At least for now, which is great. But how did this happen? See, in 2005, a pro-Chinese Communist Party called Liberation Road, the people who gave us Black Lives Matter, that's a Chinese operation, Black Lives Matter. They set up a group in Virginia called New Virginia Majority. And it was like Acorn. They wore orange t-shirts. Many of them were ex-Acorn people. And they went out there, and over a few years, they signed up 300,000 minority voters in that state, Northern Virginia. Then they worked with Terry McAuliffe to legalize, to give voting rights to 200,000 felons in that state. That 500,000 voting base is what flipped Virginia. Now, what they don't tell you is this. Well, they actually put an op-ed in the New York Times in 2018. We flipped Virginia. It was New Virginia Majority that did it. They admit that. They didn't talk about the Chinese Communist Party. The reason they were so successful is they were using GIS computerized mapping. They had every single precinct in Virginia mapped out. They can tell you where every ethnic minority lived, the voting patterns, income levels, so they could send Laotian volunteers into Laotian areas. They could send Puerto Rican volunteers into Puerto Rican areas, Iranian volunteers into Iranian areas. That's what maximised their vote. Well, those maps were drawn up on contract by a Liberation Road communist called Steve McClure, who was a graduate of the George Mason University Geography Department. But he's been making those maps for the last 10 years, working out of the Geography Department of Wuhan University, China. So they flipped Virginia from China. Now there's a network right through the southern states. And not just the southern states. In North Carolina, they have the Carolina Federation. In Kentucky, they have Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. In Texas, they have the Texas Organizing Project, which used to be Texas Acorn. And in Georgia, they have the New Georgia Project. Stacey Abrams' organization is part of this Chinese network. It's 100% part of this Chinese network. Stacey Abrams is the protege of Janetta Cole, who used to be, what's the black women's college in the state? Spelman, yeah. She was the head of Spelman, where Stacey Abrams went. She was Janetta Cole was a communist, hardcore pro-Cuban communist. When Bill Clinton tried to nominate her for a position in the education department, she was denied when the Republicans used to stand against communism. They put her down. She is also the protege of a man called Steve Phillips, who's a very wealthy lawyer out of San Francisco. Used to be an active member of the League of Revolutionary Struggle, a pro-Chinese communist party. But he married into the very wealthy Sandler family of New York, of San Francisco. They used to own Golden West Savings and Loan. Multi-billionaires. And he has used that money, working with George Soros, working with other institutions, to fund radical organizations in the South, specifically Stacey Abrams, Andrew Gillum in Florida, to flip the South. This is his strategy. Remember the Rainbow Coalition of the 1980s? That great scamster Jesse Jackson got out there and ran for president twice, 84 and 88, on the Rainbow Coalition idea. And what that was very simple. It came from the Black Panthers of Chicago. You get the white radicals and the black radicals and the brown radicals together to form a coalition. Well, Jesse Jackson expanded that. You got the white radicals, the black radicals, the brown radicals, the red radicals, the Native Americans, the green radicals, which were the environmentalists in those days, the lavender radicals, which were the gays. They had a rainbow coalition, their term. And their goal was to unite all the minorities to form a majority. But in those days, minorities were 18-20% of the population. Now they're closing in on 40% of the population. So the strategy was before its time. The Rainbow Coalition was completely run by pro-Chinese communists. League of Revolutionary Struggle, Communist Workers' Party, Line of March, Freedom Road Socialist Organization. It was a Chinese operation. So what Steve Phillips did was bring that old Rainbow Coalition strategy into the modern era. He wrote a book, Brown is the New White. And this is his argument. He says, Democrats, stop wasting your time on the middle voter. Forget it. You have 40% minorities in this country, most of whom lean Democratic. If you ally them with the white progressives, you have 51 to 53% of the population. You have a majority. What you've got to do is go into the South, where there are millions of blacks, Latinos, white college kids who lean Democrat but they don't vote. And then you get black or Latino candidates of color. You run them on a progressive platform, you mobilize that base, and you flip the South. That was how they flipped Virginia. That is the reason North Carolina has a Democrat governor. Why Kentucky has a Democrat governor. Why Arizona has 2 Democrat senators. Why this state has 2 Democrat senators. And why that certified imbecile Beto O'Rourke came that close to beating Ted Cruz in Texas a couple of years ago. This is the strategy. The Maoist communists working for China, they call the South the new Confederacy. Because the South is there, in their eyes, is the center of Christian conservatism and the Republican Party. So if you can flip a couple of southern states, you finish the Republican Party as a nationwide force. That is why they are forgetting the Midwest. The Democrats have gone so crazy left, they have lost their Midwestern white voter base. All those union guys in Pennsylvania and Ohio, they're all Trump Republicans now. So what do? They've got to bring millions across the border and they've got to flip the South. They've got to work the minority vote in the the South. And Stacey Abrams is right in the middle of that. She is ground zero. She is working as part of a Chinese operation to flip the southern states. Now, Raphael Warnock, your two senators here. Now, I understand in the last election, a lot of Georgia conservatives were pretty disgusted at the GOP, especially Mitch McConnell, for refusing to fight